Amelia Earhart. She was one of the most daring pioneers in aviation history, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. But on July 2, 1937, during her ambitious attempt to fly around the world, she vanished without a trace over the vast Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. Accompanied by navigator Fred Noonan, Earhart had already completed 22,000 miles of her journey. Only 7,000 remained. But as they approached their next refueling stop, radio contact faded, and then, silence. The U.S. Navy launched the largest air and sea search in its history, scouring 250,000 square miles of ocean. No wreckage, no bodies. Just haunting static transmissions that some believed were distress calls. Over the decades, theories multiplied: crash and sink, captured by the Japanese, or perhaps stranded on a remote island like Nikumaroro, where bones and artifacts have sparked speculation but no confirmation. To this day, Amelia Earhart's disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history. Did she die at sea or survive in silence, lost to time? D.B. Cooper. On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve, a man using the alias Dan Cooper, later misreported as D.B. Cooper, boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. Dressed in a dark suit, with a black tie and a briefcase, he appeared ordinary, until he handed a note to the flight attendant claiming he had a bomb. He calmly demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle. When the plane landed, the passengers were released, and Cooper's demands were met. Then, under the cover of darkness, he ordered the crew to take off again. Somewhere over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, with heavy rain pouring outside, Cooper lowered the rear stairway and vanished midair with the money, leaping into legend. The FBI launched an unprecedented manhunt, scouring the wilderness for months. No trace of Cooper was ever found, until 1980, when a boy discovered decaying bundles of the ransom cash near the Columbia River. His true identity? Still unknown. No body, no parachute, just a name etched into American folklore: Flight MH370. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, carrying 239 passengers and crew, vanished without a trace. The Boeing 777 departed Kuala Lumpur just after midnight, bound for Beijing. Less than an hour into the flight, it abruptly disappeared from civilian radar over the South China Sea. What followed was one of the most baffling aviation mysteries in modern history. Military radar later showed the plane veering off course, turning westward, then south, flying for hours before contact was completely lost. No distress call, no explanation, just silence. An international search, the largest in aviation history, scoured vast stretches of the Indian Ocean. In 2015, a wing fragment known as a flaperon washed ashore on Réunion Island, confirming MH370's tragic fate. Yet the fuselage, black boxes, and the majority of the aircraft have never been found. Was it mechanical failure, hijacking, or something darker? A decade later, the world still has no clear answer, only theories and the haunting absence of closure. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'll greatly appreciate it if you could show support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much. The Sauter Children. On Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia, tragedy struck the Sauter family home. Around 1 a.m., a fire engulfed the house where George and Jenny Sauter lived with their 10 children. 5 of the children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, aged 5 to 14, were never seen again. Their parents escaped with 4 of their children, but the remaining 5 were believed to have perished in the blaze. Yet, when the ashes cooled, no remains were found. Strange details haunted the case. The phone line had been deliberately cut. A ladder that was always propped against the house had vanished. The family's coal truck, which George intended to use to rescue the trapped children, wouldn't start, sabotaged, he believed. Witnesses later claimed to have seen the children alive, even weeks after the fire. The official investigation concluded the children died in the fire, but George and Jenny never accepted it. They erected a billboard on Route 16, displaying their missing children's faces for decades, pleading for answers. No bodies, no closure, just questions. 80 years later, the fate of the Sauter children remains one of America's most unsettling mysteries. Jimmy Hoffa. On July 30th, 1975, Jimmy Hoffa, the powerful and controversial leader of the Teamsters Union, vanished without a trace from a restaurant parking lot in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Hoffa, once one of America's most influential labor figures, had been trying to regain control of the union after serving time in prison for fraud and jury tampering. That summer afternoon, he was scheduled to meet two mafia-linked associates, Anthony Giacalone and Anthony Provenzano, but neither man admitted to showing up. When Hoffa failed to return home, his car was found abandoned, and witnesses reported seeing him pacing near the restaurant entrance as if waiting for someone. The disappearance sparked one of the largest FBI investigations in U.S. history, codenamed Operation Hoffa. Over the years, investigators followed hundreds of leads, from claims of mafia hits to theories of Hoffa being buried under stadiums or incinerated. Yet no physical evidence has ever been found. In 1982, Hoffa was declared legally dead, but his fate remains unsolved, fueling decades of speculation. Was it the mob silencing a man who knew too much, or a betrayal from someone he trusted? His disappearance remains one of America's greatest mysteries. Mora Murray was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst when she vanished under haunting circumstances on February 9, 2004. Around 7:30 p.m., her black Saturn crashed along Route 112 near Haverhill, a remote part of northern New Hampshire. A passing bus driver stopped to check on her. Mora claimed she had already called for help, though no such call was ever placed. Minutes later, before police arrived, she was gone. What makes this case so perplexing is the precision of her disappearance. There were no signs of struggle. Her car was locked. Her belongings, including packed bags and printed directions to Vermont, were still inside. Bloodhounds tracked her scent only a short distance from the scene before it vanished. Despite extensive searches by air, land, and law enforcement, no trace of Mora has ever been found. Over 2 decades later, theories range from voluntary disappearance to foul play or even accidental death in the surrounding wilderness. But without evidence, the case remains one of the most enduring missing person mysteries in America. Lars Mitank. In July 2014, 28-year-old Lars Mitank, a German tourist vacationing on Bulgaria's Black Sea coast, vanished without a trace, sparking one of the internet's most puzzling mysteries. After a minor dispute at a local bar and an ear injury that barred him from flying, Lars began exhibiting strange, paranoid behavior. He sent unsettling messages to his mother, claiming he was being followed, and checked into a cheap hotel near Varna Airport. Then, on July 8th, security cameras captured his final known movements. Lars suddenly sprinted out of the airport terminal, leaving his luggage behind. He bolted across a field, climbed a fence, and disappeared into the surrounding woods. He was never seen again. Authorities launched extensive searches, but no definitive clues emerged. Some speculated mental health issues or drug involvement, while others feared foul play. Despite widespread media coverage and viral theories online, Lars Mitank remains missing over a decade later. Meline McCann. On the night of May 3, 2007, in the quiet seaside town of Praia da Luz, Portugal, 3-year-old Meline McCann vanished without a trace. The British toddler had been sleeping in her family's holiday apartment while her parents dined just 50 meters away. When her mother, Kate McCann, returned around 10 p.m. to check on the children, Madeline's bed was empty, her soft toy still in place, the window open, the shutter raised. What followed was a media firestorm and one of the largest missing child investigations in history. Portuguese police launched a search, initially treating it as an abduction, then controversially naming the McCanns as suspects, before later clearing them. Over the years, Scotland Yard poured millions into Operation Grange, following thousands of leads across Europe. In 2020, German authorities identified a convicted sex offender, Christian Bruckner, as a prime suspect, but no charges have been filed. Despite global attention, tip-offs, and endless theories, Meline McCann has never been found. 18 years on, the world is still left asking, what really happened that night in Portugal? Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota. On the night of May 14, 2008, after celebrating the end of spring semester with friends, Brandon was driving home when his car veered off a gravel road into a ditch near Taunton. At 1:54 a.m., he called his parents, saying he was unhurt and walking toward the nearby town of Lind. For 47 minutes, they stayed on the phone, guiding him through the darkness, until he suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, shit," and the line went dead. Brandon was never heard from again. When authorities searched the area, they found his car, but no signs of struggle and no trace of Brandon. Massive search efforts, including ground crews, dogs, and aerial units, scoured over 100 square miles. Not a single confirmed clue has emerged. Investigators believe he may have fallen into the Yellow Medicine River, but even that theory lacks proof. To this day, the disappearance of Brandon Swanson remains one of Minnesota's most haunting unsolved mysteries, vanishing mid-call as if swallowed by the night. The Flann Isles Keepers. In December 1900, one of the most haunting maritime mysteries in history unfolded on the Flann Isles, a remote cluster of rocky islands in Scotland's Outer Hebrides. 3 lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, vanished without a trace. When a relief vessel arrived on December 26th, the island was terrifyingly silent. The lighthouse was locked, the lamp unlit, and the clock had stopped. Inside, everything appeared normal, except the men were gone. A logbook found later mentioned violent storms, though no such weather was recorded in the surrounding area during the time frame. One keeper reportedly displayed signs of extreme fear, as if something ominous loomed. Strangely, their oilskins, essential for braving the cold, were left behind, suggesting a hasty or unexpected exit. An official investigation concluded that the men were swept away by rogue waves while trying to secure equipment, but no bodies were ever recovered. With no signs of struggle, no distress signals, and no definitive answers, the Flann Isles mystery endures, a chilling enigma carved into the windswept cliffs of the North Atlantic. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I've got lots of interesting videos coming up. Brian Schaffer was a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University when he vanished without a trace on the night of March 31, 2006, in Columbus, Ohio. It was the start of spring break, and Brian had gone out with friends to celebrate. Around 1:55 a.m., CCTV footage captured him entering the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar near the OSU campus. But here's where the mystery begins. There's no footage of him ever leaving. Despite multiple cameras covering every exit, Brian simply disappeared. His cell phone, bank accounts, and credit cards were never used again. Friends, family, and police were baffled. Some believed he might have slipped out through a service exit or fallen victim to foul play. Others speculated he vanished voluntarily, though there was no indication he planned to leave his life behind. Over the years, countless leads turned cold. Even with extensive searches, media coverage, and a private investigator, no solid evidence has emerged. Brian's disappearance remains one of the most confounding missing person cases in modern U.S. history, and to this day, no one knows what happened after he stepped inside that bar. Natalie Holloway. In May 2005, 18-year-old Natalie Holloway, an honors student from Alabama, traveled to Aruba with classmates to celebrate her high school graduation. On the night of May 30th, she was last seen leaving a nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's in Oranjestad around 1:30 a.m., getting into a car with 3 local men, Joran van der Sloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo. She never returned to her hotel. The next morning, Natalie missed her flight home, triggering immediate concern. Her disappearance quickly captured international headlines, drawing global attention and turning the small Caribbean island into the center of a media storm. Local authorities launched a massive investigation, joined by the FBI and volunteers from the U.S. Van der Sloot, and the Kalpo brothers were repeatedly arrested and released due to lack of evidence. Conflicting stories, false confessions, and dead-end tips plagued the case for years. Despite extensive searches, no trace of Natalie was ever found. In 2012, she was declared legally dead. In 2023, Joran van der Sloot finally admitted to killing her, but her body remains missing. To this day, the island holds its secrets. Trevor Deely was a 22-year-old Irishman working in Dublin when he vanished without a trace on December 8, 2000. It was the early hours after his office Christmas party. CCTV captured Trevor walking alone through the rain-drenched streets of Dublin around 4 a.m. after briefly stopping by his workplace on Haddington Road. Moments before he arrived, a man dressed in dark clothing was seen waiting outside in the shadows. He appeared to follow Trevor afterward, but that man has never been identified, and the footage, despite repeated analysis, offers no clear clues. Trevor was last seen on CCTV passing a bank on Bagot Street Bridge. Then, nothing. No more footage, no phone calls, no sightings. It was as if he had simply disappeared into the night. Investigators searched the River Dodder and surrounding areas extensively, but no trace of Trevor was ever found. In 2017, a cold case review reignited interest, and a new search was launched based on a tip-off, but again, it led nowhere. To this day, Trevor Deely's disappearance remains one of Ireland's most baffling modern mysteries. The Springfield Three. On the morning of June 7, 1992, in Springfield, Missouri, 3 women vanished without a trace. They became known as the Springfield Three. 47-year-old Cheryl Levitt, her 19-year-old daughter Susie Streeter, and Susie's best friend, 18-year-old Stacy McCall. The girls had just graduated from high school the night before and were last seen heading to Cheryl's home around 2 a.m., planning to sleep there after parties. But by morning, they were gone. Inside the house, everything was strangely normal. Purses, keys, clothes, and cars left untouched. But something was off. A shattered porch light, a curiously erased answering machine message, and no signs of forced entry or struggle. When friends arrived later that day to check in, they found the house empty, but eerily undisturbed. The police launched one of the largest investigations in Missouri history, interviewing hundreds and chasing countless tips, including rumors of grave robbers, stalkers, and even sightings across state lines. Yet no arrests, no bodies, no definitive clues. Over 3 decades later, the fate of the Springfield Three remains a haunting enigma. 1 voicemail lost, 3 lives gone, and a silence that still echoes. Rebecca Coram. In March 2011, 24-year-old Rebecca Coram vanished under mysterious circumstances while working as a crew member aboard the Disney Wonder cruise ship. The ship had departed from Los Angeles and was en route to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. On the morning of March 22nd, Rebecca missed the start of her shift. CCTV footage showed her hours earlier, in the crew lounge, appearing visibly distressed while on the phone. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. As soon as her absence was noted, the ship conducted a search, but there was no trace. No one had seen her fall, and the waters revealed nothing. Disney reported her missing, and the Bahamian authorities, under whose flag the ship was registered, led a brief and heavily criticized investigation. The lack of transparency sparked outrage. Her family was flown in, yet they claimed crew members seemed rehearsed, and Rebecca's flip-flops, presented as her last known belongings, appeared too clean and suspiciously placed. To this day, no definitive explanation has emerged. Some suspect suicide or a tragic accident. Others point to foul play and a possible cover-up by the cruise line. But over a decade later, one question remains unanswered. What really happened to Rebecca Coram in the middle of the sea? Phoenix Colden. On December 18, 2011, 23-year-old Phoenix Colden stepped into her black 1998 Chevy Blazer outside her family's home in Spanish Lake, Missouri, and was never seen again. Around 3 p.m., she told her mother she was going to the store, but hours later, her SUV was found abandoned in East Street, Lewis, Illinois, nearly 25 minutes away. The engine was still running. The driver's door was open. Her phone and purse were missing, but her glasses and ID were left behind. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no explanation. Phoenix was an accomplished student, a fencing champion, and deeply religious. But as the investigation unfolded, a double life began to emerge, one that included a secret cell phone, hidden Facebook activity, and cryptic journal entries. Had she run away, or was she taken? Despite national media attention and private investigations, no solid leads have ever surfaced. 13 years later, Phoenix Colden's disappearance remains a haunting mystery, one with more questions than answers. Michael Rockefeller. In November 1961, 23-year-old Michael Rockefeller, son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, disappeared off the coast of southwest Papua New Guinea. A recent Harvard graduate and passionate collector of tribal art, Michael was traveling through the remote Asmat region when his catamaran capsized near the village of Otsyanep. While his companion swam to get help, Michael attempted to swim to shore, saying, "I think I can make it." He was never seen again. The Dutch authorities launched an intensive 2-week search by air, sea, and land. But in the dense jungle and politically sensitive colonial territory, no trace of him was found. Officially, the conclusion was drowning. But rumors swirled. Stories whispered by missionaries and locals suggested Michael may have reached shore, only to fall victim to a revenge killing or even cannibalism by Asmat warriors. Decades later, journalists and researchers returned to Papua New Guinea chasing the legend. Some found villagers who claimed to know the truth. But without a body or definitive proof, the fate of Michael Rockefeller remains one of the most haunting mysteries of the 20th century. Etan Pats. On the morning of May 25, 1979, 6-year-old Etan Pats left his New York City apartment for the short walk to his school bus stop in Soho, and vanished. It was the first time his parents had allowed him to go alone. Etan never made it to school. His disappearance ignited a national panic, transforming the way America approached missing children. His face became one of the first to appear on milk cartons, and May 25th was later declared National Missing Children's Day in his honor. Despite an enormous search effort, posters, media coverage, and door-to-door inquiries, Etan's trail went cold. For decades, the case haunted the nation. Then, in 2012, a dramatic twist unfolded. Pedro Hernandez, a former store clerk from the neighborhood, confessed to luring Etan into the basement and killing him. But there was no physical evidence, and Hernandez's mental health raised questions. After a mistrial in 2015, he was convicted in 2017 of murder and kidnapping. Still, with no body ever found, many wonder, did justice truly prevail? Tara Calico. On the morning of September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico set off on her regular bike ride along New Mexico State Road 47 in Belen, New Mexico. It was a route she knew well, but this time, she never came home. Her mother had warned her about a pickup truck that had been following her on previous rides. Tara laughed it off. That afternoon, when she didn't return, panic set in. Her Sony Walkman and cassette tape were later found shattered by the roadside. Her pink bike was gone. Witnesses reported seeing a light-colored pickup tailing her, but no one saw what happened next. Then, in June 1989, 9 months later, a Polaroid photo was discovered in a Florida parking lot showing a young woman and boy bound and gagged in the back of a van. The girl resembled Tara. Her mother believed it was her daughter, but the FBI couldn't confirm it, and to this day, the image remains one of the most debated clues in a missing person case. Tara Calico was declared legally dead in 1998, but her case remains open. Was she abducted? Did she end up in that van? Or was the photo just a cruel coincidence? Keith Reinhardt. In 1988, Keith Reinhardt, a 49-year-old Chicago sports writer, traveled to the remote mountain town of Silver Plume, Colorado, seeking inspiration for a novel and a fresh start. But what he found was a mystery that would soon consume him. Just months earlier, another man named Tom Young had vanished from the same town. Fascinated, Reinhardt began investigating Young's disappearance, even renting the same shop Young once owned. Then, on August 7, 1988, Reinhardt told friends he was going for a hike and never returned. His last known words were haunting. "I'm going to climb that mountain. If I don't come back, call for help." A massive search involving helicopters, dogs, and dozens of volunteers turned up nothing, except for a single boot and vague theories. 1 week later, Tom Young's body was found in the nearby woods, with a gunshot wound to the head, his dog dead beside him. But Reinhardt, never found. Was it a tragic accident, a planned disappearance, or something far stranger? Over 3 decades later, the mountains of Silver Plume still hold their secrets. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos here. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much.